Welcome to Indie Resources' fourth video on C#. This is Halls of Valhalla. Now that we got some of that stuff out of the way and we just kind of went over some basic things, I want to make a little game. It'll just be a little goofy game, just to kind of reiterate everything we went over and to kind of make sure everything has sunk in. A couple things I want to change here. Let's just go ahead and let's do a we'll call it Kill the Kobold game, where we just have one player and we have a kobold that you kill. And basically it's you fight each other. Of course the hero could, or the player could get killed too, who knows, but let's just make it real simple just to kind of see how simple this is, and then we'll move on from there. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make a new class for the player. So we got class, it's a new item, and let's call it player, add, and we have our new player. Now inside the player we want to create some variables. Because he's going to have, well, we're not going to do strength. Let's just say he has an attack, he has a defense, and he has hit points. So, and bear with me for a minute, I'm going to do private integer attack. Notice how I don't have to do player attack anymore because he's inside the player class, so it's going to be player.attack. And then private integer defense, and then a private integer hit points. Now, I know you're saying, well, wait a second, you just set them to private. How is anything else supposed to use it? Well, here's what we're going to do. Variables need a get and set. They need a method, I guess you call it. They need an ability for another class or another method to be able to call on them and reset it. Because if we're in the kobold class and the kobold is attacking, and he knocks our hit points down, we need a way for that method that is knocking our hit points down to change what's in the player's class on the hit points. So what we do, we come down here and we make a public variable and call it uppercase attack. And remember, we got to make it an integer. That's my bad. And what we're doing is we're going to kind of create this into a method. We're going to do a, and we're going to say get, oops, and what we want to do is, if we're getting it, we want to return the value. So we're going to do return, and then we're going to do the lowercase attack. Now bear with me if you're lost here for a minute. What we're basically doing is, when I call on the player, when I go player, looks like I had player 1 there for some reason. Did I? Yeah, I did. Let's change it here. That was my bad. Not sure why I did player 1. Maybe it's force of habit or something. Let's rename it to just player. If you notice, it changed it here too, automatically for us. Very nice. So anyway, when I call on the player's attack, let's say hit points, since we know it's going to change. Let's say that the kobold's attacking us and he knocks 5 hit points off of us. Well, first we need to check how many hit points does the player even have. That's when we call on this uppercase. Let's go ahead and say attack, since we have attack. Let's say that we need to change the attack. Well, first we need to get what is the attack. We need to get it. So we use this public variable that's uppercase attack. When we call on it, this get method is run and it returns the private variable attack. So basically it's like this guy right here is passing the information from this guy that's private. It's like these two guys are in a building together or wherever, and one is saying, okay, since you can't go outside, I'm going to go ahead and pass the information for you. Now, what happens if we need to change that attack? What happens if he gets injured and he loses one or whatever it is? Then we have the set method. And what we're going to do to set is we're going to say the lowercase attack equals value. And that is a predetermined. When I say predetermined, I mean that's if you notice it's in blue, that value is going to be whatever is passed by this set. So if we got to change the attack, say they go up 1 attack, it's going to come in here. Since it can't access this true private variable here, this guy's going to be like, well, since you can't go outside, I'll go outside, I'll get the number, and whichever that value is going to be, and I'm going to pass it back to you. So that's basically what's happening. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to copy and paste here real quick, and I'm going to do the same for defense, and notice the uppercase, but I'm going to be lowercase here. And we need to do the same thing for hit points. Looks like I goofed. I made them uppercase. Make sure you make them lowercase. Bam. Okay. So we've got all those out of the way, and we could hide these to get them out of the way, but I want to keep them there just so you guys see them. So we have our basic stats created. Now we need to do the same thing for the kobold. So let's go into add new item, new class, and that's why I put a 1 after it. I just never deleted the old one. Kobold, let's add it. Now instead of me retyping all this, I'm just going to come into player and I'm just going to re-grab all this. I want to make sure to grab too much right there. And I'm going to add it to the kobold class. Now, some of you who are used to say PHP or something like that, where you're just building the variables on the top of the page, wherever it may be, even JavaScript, you can be like, well, hold on, you already got a variable named attack. Remember, that variable is assigned to this class. It's only valid in this class. So this attack means the kobold's attack, while the player's attack means the player's attack. It's kind of the one thing I really like about it. Okay, so, and we might be able to test this as far as what I have right now with this print title. Maybe not yet. We're not ready yet. So anyway, we now have our public variables, or basically our variables for our player and our kobold. Now we need to set up a way for each one of them to attack each other. The best way would be is to each class have their own attack method. So let's build an attack method, and it's going to be a public, so we can access it. It is not, well, it is, I'm trying to think if it should return anything. Thinking about it, no, it's not going to return anything because we can do everything from inside the class pretty easily. So I'm going to say no, we're not going to return anything. So we can make it. Now, one thing about this that I forgot, there's only going to be one attack. One type of, it only needs to be built once. It's not like he has 50 different attacks. If he did, then we'd go from there, but we just got one attack. So we got a static public, and it's going to be void because we're not going to return anything, and we're going to call it attack. And there we go. So oh, I have a variable. I already have a variable named that. So let's do let's name our method swing. That works for me. Okay, so inside of swing, we want to be able to attack the kobold when it's called. So in other words, when we say player.swing, it should come up with something. So let's go ahead and do a, normally I would build a class built around some kind of text functions that would handle all this, but for now I don't want to do that. So let's do this. Let's do console dot clear to clear the console. In other words, it erases the screen. And then let's do console dot right line, and we are going to say player swings, and then we're going to space it and kind of end it there, because we're going to let the rest of this come out with something. So the next thing we want to do is we want to take, just thinking about the best way to do this, let's go ahead and do a random roll. Let's do a D6 roll, which would just be like a 1 6-sided dice. So let's create a new random number. So we're going to do random. We're just going to name it attack roll, and equals new random. and that pretty much means that attack roll, whoops, all that's doing is creating it's creating an almost a it's instantiating a version of the random class and naming it attack roll. I guess that's the best way to put it for me. And then what we want to do is we want to create a integer type of final roll equals. Then we want to do attack roll dot next, and I'm not really going through and explaining this too much because this is going to be your standard on how you do random numbers, and we're going to name it 1 through 6, or make it 1 through 6. So basically what that's going to do is that's going to say final roll is going to be equivalent to some random number 1 through 6. So as we continue, well, you know what? There is one thing I did miss, and that is because attack and defense and the hit points of stats, they're only going to be created once in the beginning, so they're actually static. We need to make sure to define these bad boys as static, because there's not going to be multiple ones of them, and that's going to give us access to them whenever we want to call them, and that's why before I wasn't able to call them, because I didn't have them static, and so it didn't really know which version I was really wanting to use. So that should take care of that. So now we have a random roll. Now we need to add it all up. So let's do integer final attack roll equals final roll plus our attack. So that's going to give us that final attack roll. There's a couple things we could do here. We could either build another method that sent this to it so that you could compare them, but let's compare everything all right here in this single method because it is basically the attack method. So now we need to get the creature's defense, and I'm going to put a space in there so we get it. So let's go ahead and create a new random, and let's call it defense roll, and we will do final defense roll is, I probably should have just started this over, but oh well. So basically it's a random defense roll. The final defense roll is the defense roll next, 1 through 6, and then we're going to do integer final defense. I guess I kind of goofed it with these different variables, but oh well. Final, let's do this. Final kobold defense equals the final defense roll plus, now here's where we're going to get here's where we have to actually bring in our kobold class and figure out what his defense is, and that public variable that we're using is defense. But if you notice, we forgot our static again, or I did, so let's throw in our static here real quick. So that way we can access these things. Because remember, the reason why we're calling them static is because they're only going to be created once. There's only one version of these, and that way when you call on this class, it knows what version you're using because there's only one version. You're saying it's just a static content. So now we ought to be able to go right here and go to kobold dot, and looky there, there's his defense right there, already ready to go. It's just handing it to you, saying, here, use it. So now we're rolling d6 and we're comparing the two, or we've got our rolls. Now we need to compare the two. So let's do this. Integer, let's call it final result. Yeah, we can't really do that yet because we need to check who's higher first before we can do any of that. So let's do an if, and I'm sure you already know what an if statement is if you're watching these videos. If not, I'll do a quick, you'll understand as we go. We're just wanting to compare two values. So we want to do if final attack roll is greater than, because we'll let the ties go to the defense, the final kobold defense, then we need to say what we're going to do. Else, if it's not, then we need to say what we're going to do. So if it's higher, that means that the attack was successful. So let's go to our console dot write line. And if you notice up there we have and, we haven't created a new line, even though this is on a new line. When it prints out to the console, it won't be. And hits. And then we want to do, let's do a new line. Make sure you get your new lines, otherwise it's going to your angle right there on that slash, otherwise it's going to show that slash in the wrong one. 4, and here's where we're going to come up with our damage. So the next thing we need to do is damage, and we actually didn't really decide what. There's nothing up here that signifies damage. I don't know if let's just go ahead and add it for the sake of adding it, just to make it a little more dynamic. So static private integer damage. And just the same, we need to assign it some get and set variables. So let's go ahead and do public static. Remember to uppercase it, damage, and these are going to be the lowercase. Okay, save it, and now we have the option of damage there. Now that's for the player. We got to do the same thing for the kobold. I'm going to cheat real quick. Actually, should have. I was going to cheat. I would have pulled it from the player. Damage. And I believe that's what I'm going to do right here. Bam. And there we go. So now we have something we can kind of look at. So let's take, I don't know if I want to randomize. Yeah, let's randomize the amount of damage on how much the total they can do. So let's come up here and let's copy this random. And let's do random damage roll equals, and then we're going to do final damage equals damage roll, and see it's going to be between 1, and then we want to use we could go player dot damage, but if you notice we can actually just use the damage. And I'm using the public version instead of the private version because since we're in the class, we can still access the private, but just out of habit, you want to access that public. So it's going to give us a random number between that damage, and we actually, what did we assign? We actually never assigned these anything either. So let's give the attack of 5. Let's give the defense of 5. Let's give the hit points of 10. Let's give the damage of 3. And let's go back to our kobold and let's do the same to him. Let's give him a I feel like I've already done this before. That's okay. We just never erased that. I was like, wait a second, I thought we did this. Let's give him a 3 on everything except for the hit points, of course. Let's give him 6 hit points. That way 2 massive critical hits can kill him. And let's give him a damage of 2. And we will save that because we're gonna have to delete all this right here. Well, we don't really have to delete it. We just won't call it for right now. So anyway, so we have our up to 3 damage, and now we need to do that damage. So what we're gonna do is we're going to take kobold dot hit points, and I'm gonna do a minus equals. And what that does is that takes the current kobold hit points and minuses it. Instead of it's basically, it's just like saying kobold hit points equals kobold hit points minus the final. Oh crap! The final. I get lazy on this IntelliSense. That's the only problem with this IntelliSense. You get real lazy sometimes, especially when I go back to JavaScript or PHP and I don't have the IntelliSense. So that should take away the current kobold's hit points, and let's go ahead and test this now that we have it. And what first we're going to have to do is let's do console dot write line, and you notice we have it ending at 4, and all we have to do is put in final damage, and we want to add to that period. And let's do a new line. Press any key to continue. Period. And then we're going to do a console dot read key. Oops. So that should freeze us there. Now I'm thinking, at least, well, we have nothing saying what the player or the kobold has to begin with. So that's where we need to go back to our original program, and we're going to show the title. Once that title comes back and it's done, then we need to do, we need to go back to print title, and we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to create a new method called static public void, and because it's not going to return anything, and we're going to call show status. And what that's going to do is we're going to do a console dot, and I'm really running out of time on this video, so let me try to hurry this up. Right line. Let's do player, and then I'm going to kind of put this all on one line, but know that I'm creating some new lines here. And then we'll do just kind of like this will be like an underline form, and then I'll do another line, and just to keep everything kind of not too crazy, let's do this. Attack equals, let's space it so it looks a little prettier. And then, so what do we do here? Well, we do the player dot attack, and it will print the player's attack out. And I tell you what I'm going to do instead. I'm just going to copy this, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to put his defense. And if you just take out that period, there's the defense. And if you notice, I mean, this is a good way to really understand what's going on here. Let me put in these hit points, and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. The class is this object right here. It's instantiating an object named player. The stats are all variables, and there's methods in here, but they're all part of that class, that dot, and then whatever it is, and it's already got the number in there because when you instantiated the class, it created that number. Now, let's say there was 3 players, so for every time you instantiated that player, that damage would be equal to that current version of the players, whatever it may be. And then let's do a couple new lines. Console dot right line. And I'm doing this. I'm putting all these on different lines just so it's easier to read, so we don't get confused. I know it's taking forever. Kobold. Let's do I don't know why I keep hitting that. Maybe it's because that's what it's supposed to be and I just forgot. So let's do, just so I get it even. Good enough. Let's put one more. And then instead of going through all this crazy stuff again, I'm going to do, all we got to do is change this to Kobold. There we go, and then the last thing I want to do is do a console dot read key. And that way it stops. So we want to do show status in the beginning. So let's go back to our program and let's do a print title dot show status. That's going to do it once in the very beginning. Now after we're done attacking, let's also do that after you read the key. Now we could make this attack a returned where it does it, but for now, just for testing purposes, I'm doing it this way. Dot show status. That way it shows it to us right there. Now, of course, the other thing we need to do is we need to say, hey, we need to attack. So after show status, I want to do a player dot swing. I was looking for attack, but I forgot we had to change it. Before I do that, though, I'm going to do a console dot tell you what, just to make this easier, because I don't want it just falling straight into attack. I want it to kind of look good. Just for now, I'm going to put press any key to attack again. So I'm thinking that should work. Let's go ahead and just give her a try. Okay, we never changed that to the title. We'll do it in a minute. Okay, so there's our player. We need to clear screen on that too, by the way. So attack equals 5, blah blah blah. So let's see what happens. Player swings and hits for 2. I wonder why it is doing a new. Oh, because I did right line. I understand what I did wrong there. I'll fix it. Hits for 2. So if we hit for 2, the kobold should only have 4 hit points left. And looky there, he's got 4 hit points left. So I'm going to end the video. It's really long, and we'll start the rest on the next video.